Poet Joel Diaz-Porter, aka DJ Renegade, leads an unusual life. He's a published poet, a national poetry slam champion, and he's also a professional poker player, living most nights in a comped Atlantic City hotel room.
Writing is the thing that's most important to me. So I gamble for a living because it allows me to be able to write whenever I want to write and spend as much time writing. Like, if I don't want to go play, then if I want to spend 18 hours working on a poem, then I can spend 18 hours working on a poem.
Joel grew up in the projects on Pittsburgh's South Side in the 1960s and enlisted in the Air Force at 18.
I was stationed at Andrews Air Force Base outside of Washington. And so I wound up eventually, when I left the Air Force, staying in the DC area. I lived there for about 29 years. And most of that time I was a nightclub disc jockey. And then towards the end, I began writing and performing poetry. The end of my time in DC, I started playing in a local poker game. At the time was scratching out a living, teaching poetry workshops and performing and doing poetry slams. And so obviously it wasn't very much of a living. And I discovered this basically home poker game. And it turns out that I have some ability at the game of poker. When you play poker for a living, you spend most of your time folding hands, actually. But there are some skills, like the ability to observe very fine details that are relevant both to writing poetry and to playing poker. Yeah, I've been fortunate. I've had some poems published in Plowshares, in Poetry Magazine. I've had poems published in Callaloo. I've also had a poem published in Time Magazine and a poem published in the Washington Post, which are kind of unusual places to have, to have your work appear.
He doesn't compete in poetry slams anymore, but still loves to perform. He recently read his work at a spoken word event organized by the Summers Point Arts Commission and the South Jersey Poets Collective.
Before the penguin's nest raised our realm, who ruled the hill district's haunts? Lacquer-lipped, monarchic, you embraced hot brass, allowed no smoky mill to steal your wind. Hawkish notes dizzying at their Eiffel-like apex dive through the ear's atmosphere. It's almost aortic how a little jazz flows from a four-chambered nautilus swinging hemo around the globe.
You're making art objects out of words. In a piece of prose, the meaning is the primarily important thing. But in poetry, the rhythm and the music are vastly more important. And then also, poems are generally things that mean more than what the words mean. If a poem only means exactly what the words mean, then it's probably not a very good poem.
I was born too tender-headed to be any rabbi of reverence for cornrows.
Joel is known for his haiku poems and has recently composed dozens about Donald Trump, not a popular person in Atlantic City.
So some of them work on puns that are visual, but like this one, in every surface, the orange antichrist sees only mirrors. So that's about the idea of him, being this sociopathic narcissist. Every morning, the orange antichrist takes credit for the sun.
Joel says he's always felt different than other people, and in the last few years has come to realize that he probably falls somewhere on the autism spectrum.
I've always been an odd person, but I didn't understand that these things were connected until much later, maybe only in the last few years. But like, for example, I'm hyper literal with language, and that can oftentimes be a problem for me in attempting to communicate with people, which is kind of ironic given the fact that I wound up becoming a poet where, subtext is of primary importance. But that was a thing that I actually had to learn. And I really struggled when I first started writing poetry with metaphor.
Joel chose to read a love poem for us.
For GS, only because it was a Thursday, which is her Monday. And she was walking as though carrying something heavy, albeit not in her hands. And I thought I heard her sigh and recalled Lonnie, who you might not know. Not Lonnie who was always pawning his wedding band so he could feed the penny slots, or Lonnie from the hill who always seemed to be half a slice short of a sandwich, but Lonnie from Lonnie's Lament. And here she cocks her head and wrinkles her nose, saying, "Who?" Because whatever blew his range so sideways inspired John William Coltrane to put a saxophone between his lips and blaze a lamentation which matches her Monday motion. A wistful grace with piano lines almost legato as her legs, and a bass line that plunges like her hair when she combs it into a black Niagara, which she can't know, makes me wish I could spend the rest of my days naked and trembling in a wooden barrel, falling forever through its obsidian mist.
Most days now, he writes poetry at Starbucks or out on the boardwalk. He's only been down to the beach twice in the past 15 years. Evenings, he plays poker till 3 a.m. Look for Joel D.S. Porter's poem, Portrait of an Artist as a Starfish and Coffee, in an upcoming edition of Poetry Magazine.
The New Jersey State Council on the Arts, encouraging excellence and public engagement in the arts since 1966, is proud to co-produce State of the Arts with Stockton University, New Jersey's distinctive public university. Additional support is provided by the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation.